Hello, and welcome back to my journey from normal to Norway. Wow, sorry, I did not plan to not film and post a video for 2 weeks or over 2 weeks at this point. I definitely had things I wanted to talk about and wanted to film sometimes, but I mean, the days just flew by, and then here in the US, we had the 4th of July holiday, and I had a few days off of work for that. And so I ended up traveling to visit my family in my hometown of San Antonio. Um, because of the days off of work, this was the time of year that was, if I was going to go back any time this year, it was going to be at this time. So, anyway, so it's been a whirlwind, I guess, of a couple of weeks. So anyway, but I'm excited to be back with you, talking about some stuff. I think most of the things that I'm going to talk about in this video, I came from things that I had watched, a couple of weeks ago, and so I had these thoughts, but, then, I, kind of completed the Norwegian courses on the app, and so I wanted to talk about that because it was right when it happened. So anyway, here we are. A lot of the inspiration for the things I'm going to talk about in this video come from something that I've already recommended to you, which is the podcast Armchair Expert that Dax Shepard does. I've still been listening, catching up. I'm close, very close to being caught up. And I'm still very, very much enjoying it. I feel like I learned so much from them. I love learning about people that I've kind of been aware of for a long time, but not necessarily have known them or their lives. So it's really interesting to get to know them and where they come from and what they've been through. And then he does these episodes that are experts on expert, and he'll have some kind of expert on. And those have been really fascinating. I feel like I've learned a lot. And so most of what, I'm going to talk about that stood out to me come from some of those episodes. And the first one that, like, really, really kind of hit me, I guess at this point it would have been, 2.5 weeks ago, was the episode that they had Reshma Saujani on, um, and and she was talking about a book that she's written called Brave Not Perfect. And I very much want to read this book now, just from hearing her talk about it. But when she was describing it, I kind of really had this feeling of like, wow, like that's me. I relate to that. That's definitely something that I absorbed from my childhood, from wherever it was. It's something that just feels accurate to me and my experience. So anyway, I'm going to read a little description of the book for you. I kind of have some notes here up on my laptop. So anyway, okay. She says, "We are raising our boys to be brave, but our girls to be perfect, and this is holding us back." And then to describe the book a little more. Imagine if you lived without the fear of failure, without the fear of not measuring up. If you no longer felt the need to stifle your thoughts and swallow what you really want to say in order to please and appease others. If you could stop berating yourself mercilessly for human mistakes, let go of the guilt and the strangling pressure to be perfect, and just breathe. What if, in every decision you faced, you made the brave choice or took the bolder path? Would you be happier? Would you impact the world in the ways you dream you can? I believe the answer to both is yes. And I just love that. I mean, there's so much in there that stands out to me that speaks to me and the struggles that I've been going through. And yeah, I definitely do feel like there's been a pressure to be perfect and not brave. Even though people say the words to be brave, I feel like everything else I've absorbed from the various data I've gotten, so maybe everything except words was not to be brave, to play it safe and stay inside the box and all of that. And so it just kind of makes sense to me and speaks to how I got to where I did when I started this thing before the Norway trip, why that was such a big deal for me and such a bold leap and such a difficult, scary, challenging thing to do was because I was trained to be in that place. That's my life was leading me to be in that fearful, cautious, um, striving for perfection place. And if something was not guaranteed to turn out perfectly, then don't even try it. Don't attempt. Wait until it's going to go perfectly for sure, then do it, which is never. That's never going to happen or be the case. I don't think, at least in my experience, I'll say. I guess I can't speak for everyone in every situation in the world. Um, and yeah, that last question, would you impact the world in the ways you dream you can? And again, that's a big part of what I'm doing with this, is hoping to have some kind of impact, um, at least on one person's life. And if it's more, that would be great. But, as I'm learning and growing, I just have such a passion to affect change, to help others, to inspire people, to connect with people, and help them to feel less alone and to feel more empowered and all of these things. And so, um, I don't know. I really want to read this book now. I feel like it just starting to think about it is really exciting to me because it's, really, I think, will push me to in a direction that I want to go and that I want to grow in. So anyway, that was one thing I wanted to talk about. Another one was, I believe, the next expert that they had on that podcast, which was Johan Hari, and he was talking about mental illness and addiction and trauma and kind of the connections amongst those. And there was a lot of it again that was really speaking to me and that was kind of making me think, just a lot of it made sense and kind of, made me think there's got to be some specific trauma, maybe one thing, maybe more, that set me on the path, um, that I went down for, whatever, a couple decades there. I talked earlier about, it was the summer between fourth and fifth grades, that I went from being, what I considered to be, normal weight to being overweight, which now, of course, I look back at pictures when I thought I was overweight and I'm like, ooh, you had no clue. Like, you were doing just fine. Like, I wish I could tell my younger self to just be happy in that body that I was in, But at the time, I felt like I was just gigantic and so unattractive. But, okay, so in that episode with Johan Hari, they were talking about how oftentimes there's some kind of trauma that will lead to people having the addictions they have, or the mental illnesses they do, or just some of those connections. And I I would say I have an addictive personality, and that's something that I've seen around me quite a bit. And probably the biggest one for me that I've used in my life is food. um and so kind of making that connection of the time in my life where I made that switch of going to an unhealthy weight was the summer between fourth and fifth grades. It just kind of makes me wonder, was there a specific catalyst in that time that put me on that path, that kind of started all of these struggles? And I mean, again, it could be one thing, it could be multiple things. And I think I know what I'm going to title this video. So based off of that, it'll be the beginning of this, kind of discovery or search or whatever that I'm starting out on. But I do have one idea at this time, something that I've always remembered and I've told, a few different people about. So it's a memory that's been there. It's not something that just came back and knocked me over, but I think potentially it might have had a much bigger impact on my life than I thought. And so I have this very clear memory of fourth grade being in my elementary school's cafeteria after school. And that's where you would go and you would sit and wait until it was your turn to go outside at the front of the school to be picked up. And I was going to be going over to my friend's house. So we were not waiting for my mom, we were waiting for her mom. And we were sitting at this table. I mean, I remember the direction that I was facing where I was sitting and everything. And she was sitting across from me. And on her side of the table, a few chairs down, was her brother. And he was a year older than she was. Just like my sister was a year older than I was. And so he was sitting there also waiting to be picked up by their mom. And I remember she, for some reason, either he asked her something or she scooted down those couple of chairs to talk to him, and I could overhear, and she was saying that, her friend Lauren was going to be coming over, was coming home with them. And I heard him say to her, kind of like wanting to identify which friend was Lauren. He said, "The pig." And I heard him say that. And I was in 4th grade, already, insecure and whatnot. But still at a place where one thing I was fine about at that time was my weight. And yeah, that sucked. That really hurt. And so it's something that I've remembered over the years, but just kind of now since listening to this podcast episode and really kind of wondering, was there something that happened around that time? This stands out as a definite possibility. Because it was the summer after that school year that, these physical changes started happening, and my issues with food and whatnot. So anyway, I don't know if there's value in me sharing that anecdote. I hope that there is. I hope that somehow for at least one of you out there watching this and hearing this, that it's helpful to you somehow. But yeah, I just wanted to be vulnerable and share that and put that out there, that I think that's a possibility. If there is a connection to some trauma in my life that started me down this, painful path that I've been on for a few decades, I think that might be a piece of the puzzle. So anyway, but yeah, so I mean, again, there's been a lot from this podcast, Armchair Expert, that I've really enjoyed, that has been really impactful to me, that has been growing to me, that I've learned from, that I've laughed about, that I just really am enjoying it, so I recommend it highly. But those were a couple of episodes there of the Experts on Expert that really got the wheels turning in my head, and so I wanted to share that. Oh, I definitely missed something. I have it in my notes here. From that Johann Hari episode, there was a quote that he shared that a woman had shared with him in his research, and she had experienced, a specific trauma earlier in her life, and she said, overweight is overlooked, and that's what I need to be. And again, that really hits home for me. I think that's definitely a big possibility, maybe probability of something that's been at least in the mix of this whole thing, is maybe even subconsciously, maybe consciously at times, I don't know, of me feeling like I need to be overlooked, trying to hide, trying to protect myself from something. And so maybe, even though all of these years I've said that I want to lose weight, and I believed that love and success and all of these things would not come to me unless I looked a certain way, primarily being a lot thinner. I think maybe part of me was holding on to the weight and doing the behaviors that would lead me to being able to hold on to the weight in order to hide and protect and be overlooked. So that quote that he shared on that episode was incredibly profound for me, and maybe it will be for some of you out there. So then, really soon after hearing those 2 podcast episodes, I was watching online a sermon that Pastor Joseph Barkley was doing at Radius Church here in Los Angeles, and he was doing a series on identity. And the last week of the series, he was talking about your body, identity, and your body. And again, there was a lot in there that was really interesting and impactful to me, but there were a couple of quotes that I made note of that I wanted to share as I was talking about all of this. I thought it would fit in. One of them was, when you take care of your body, you are telling your soul that you are a person worth taking care of. I mean, again, I think that fits right in for me because I've had all of these thoughts about my worth and lack of worth, and it's been completely tied into my physical appearance and all of that. So there's that. The other quote is, if you don't know who you are apart from your body, you will always struggle to know what story to tell with your body. And again, that made sense to me. I feel like I need to think more on that one for sure. But that's a lot of like the work that I've been doing these last few years, going to therapy and, you know, making the decision to do the Norway thing and all of that, is really getting to know myself and learning to appreciate myself and love myself as I am. And so I think this for me was kind of encouragement on that road of, if I want to know, if I don't want to struggle to know what story I want to tell, I need to know myself. I need to know all of myself, and my body is just one part of who I am. And so, anyway, that was just an encouragement that it's like, okay, you're on the right path, continue to learn about yourself and grow and, self-care and self-love and all of that. So anyway, those are all of those thoughts. And then right before I was going to film this, I kind of thought going back to the podcast, one of the episodes I just listened to, another expert was, he had, Samin Nosrat. I'm not sure if that's how you say her name. It might be. Anyway, but she was the one who wrote the book and then did the Netflix series Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And she's just a super fun person, and I absolutely want to be her friend in real life. But something that really impressed me about her story, her personal journey, was every step along the way, it seems to me, at least, outsider's perspective, that when she wanted something, she was aware of it. She figured out, okay, here's the next thing I want. And then she actively did the research to figure out, what do I need to do to get there, and then took those steps, writing letters to people and, learning a language and, trying to get a specific scholarship and these various things. Like, she just was very proactive, it seems to me, throughout her life to get where she wanted to go. And that was just so impressive to me, and definitely something that I strive towards, that I wouldn't say has really been a part of my life, or definitely not a consistent part of my life, and something that I want to adopt for sure, that I want to become part of my natural makeup, part of who I am, and how I function in the world. I want to be clear about, what I want and who I want to be and how I want to be, and I want to proactively research and figure out what it takes to take that next step, and then I want to actively do those things to get myself there. So anyway, that was really, I guess, why can't I think of the word right now? Inspirational. Ugh. That was really inspirational to me, and maybe it will be to one of you out there. So anyway, that's my thoughts for right now. Some ups and some downs in there for sure. But just kind of wanted to share, and it feels like, in some ways a continuation of a journey that I've been on, and in some other ways the beginning of a new journey towards self-discovery. So I will keep you updated as I head down that path, and I hope that something in there that I shared, one of these quotes or whatever, will spur you on and inspire you to take whatever the next step is in your life. And if it does so, I would love to hear about it. Again, I would love for this to be an impactful, interactive thing. So if you have comments or questions at any point, please feel free to reach out, and I would love to hear from you and to connect with you. So yeah, that's how I'm doing. It's past midnight now, so I gotta get myself to bed, be a responsible adult, trying. But anyway, I hope that you're doing well. We're through the half point of the week, so we're getting closer to the weekend. You can do it. You can make it. Hope that you have a great few days, or however long it is, until I talk to you again. And as always, until then, hada.